Listen, this is more shut up and get in line about this Israel thing. Let's listen.
And Boswell, meanwhile, Mike mentioned the protests that were carried out inside Radio City. There were some also outside Radio City. What do you make of how Democrats are handling the protests and the issue of the United States policy towards Israel and its policy of how Israel is handling the war in Gaza?
Two things. I think what Barack Obama said in response to the protests is like, look, we have a big tent party. You don't want a party that has a singular voice, a singular narrative, because that's what you're getting on the other side. And that suggests their values, but it really talked a lot about democratic values, that we're willing to have these conversations and these tough conversations, quite frankly. And yes, I do believe that these protests have signaled a larger movement, among a lot of voters, particularly a lot of young voters. But we see also that these protests and these conversations, particularly a lot of those votes that we've seen for this uncommitted candidate in Michigan, Wisconsin, has actually impacted the administration's language and view.
Their language
position with respect
what
to
does that do
to the war between Israel and Hamas. So it's reminiscent to some extent of when I was a young voter and I was protesting apartheid in South Africa.
And now look at you now. You were a young voter protesting apartheid in South Africa. Now you're an old Democratic hack promoting and supporting genocide in Palestine. How far have we come?
These protests work. That voice does work, and it does move the needle. And owing to what former President Barack Obama said, that's the Democratic Party of today, that's willing to entertain these different and
you see the threshold they're setting now? Vote for us, because at least we're willing to entertain. We're willing to entertain your grievance that we're going to deny and continue with our status quo policy. That's the selling point. Israel has killed 37 mothers every day since October 7th, and that's what the gist of this article is about. March 8th is the date, 2024, complicit in genocide where Israel gets its weapons from. And we're not going to read the whole article. I read it myself, and I took out the parts I want to read for the segment, and here we are. 37 mothers killed each day. Now, the rest of this is from the article. Over 9,000 Palestinian women have been killed since the start of the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip. Mothers have been the largest share of Israeli killings. Mothers, not Hamas, mothers. Share of Israeli killings at an average of 37 mothers per day since October 7th. The numbers above from the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza and the Red Crescent Society, respectively, only convey part of the suffering experienced by the 2.3 million Palestinians in the Strip. There is not a single section in Palestinian society that has not paid a heavy price for the war, although women and children are the ones who have suffered most, constituting over 70% of all victims of the ongoing Israeli genocide. Let's pause here. So when people say, how can you say, I think Jake Tapper was the last person I can envision saying this to AOC. It was the AOC interview. So genocide is a distinct definition, meaning there is an intent. He kept emphasizing intent. You're saying is an intent? The threshold that the empire, U.S. empire, and Western chauvinist countries have set up, the threshold to clear intent is that you have to admit intent. The person killing people have to admit it is the threshold, not by evidence, meaning you intend to kill 1,000 people if only one out of the 1,000 was Hamas. Your intent is to kill them if you bomb, knowing there was 1,000 people in there with the one Hamas. Your intent is to kill them. by your results. That's what we should be looking at. So if 70% of the killings are women and children, the intent isn't proven by the results, by it being 70% women and children. True, these women and their children are killed at the hands of Israeli soldiers, but they are murdered with U.S. Western supplied weapons. And again, I said it was a short article, but 37 mothers every day. This is the largest demographic that is murdered in this occupation that is being done by U.S. supplied weapons. And then Obama wants you to say, you need to also listen. Then they want you to believe they want a ceasefire with that fake resolution. Just think of all of the attempts that have failed, that have fizzled away. They don't talk about like that fake resolution that they tried to pass. The attempts to fool people because they know they're not going to change policy because this is not a democracy is eye-opening to a lot of people. At least I hope it's eye-opening to a lot of people.